Thank you for this. Appreciate that. Good morning, good morning. It's good to see everyone, and we're back for week 2 of our study of Koine Greek. Now, how many of you took the opportunity to, over the week, try to write out English words with Greek letters? You girls did? Did you write each other letters? You didn't do that. Okay, did you do it? You tried it? Good. Did you do it? Know it? How did it work for you? It worked fine? No. Alright. Okay. Well, like I said, that was just a fun exercise to try to familiarize ourselves with the letters. We're going to go over them again this morning, sort of for repetition. We're going to go over some of the rules that we learned last week to try to help us out. And I'm going to talk about one thing that may have confused you last week. It was pointed out to me after the class, and I wanted to make sure that I gave you the opportunity to see this. Going over them again, we have alpha, beta, gamma, delta, you can say it with me, epsilon, zeta, eta, theta, iota, kappa, lambda, mu, nu, psi, omicron, pi, rho, sigma, tau, upsilon, phi, chi, psi, omega. Alright, the one that, like I said, could potentially have been confusing from last week was the letter zeta, because the way that I was writing it was in a little bit different shape than what you were looking at on your paper, and I had somebody make that point to me after class, so I said, well, I would make sure, because basically the capital zeta looks just like our Z, and the lowercase zeta is effectively a Z with a tail, which as what I wrote last week, it said it looked like the number 3. But in its more calligraphical form, the more cursive form, it goes up, around, and back. And that's more like what you have on your sheet. It kind of goes, it does a loop with a tail. Is that what you have on yours? It looks more like that? Okay, because some people were very confused last week, and I said I wanted to make sure that that wasn't going to be a problem. So I wrote it that way this morning when I wrote out the alphabet, and now we have that solved if it was making any confusion. All right. So this week we're going to move right along. We're going to go over some things again. I'm going to give you your first list of vocabulary words. Some words that you can begin to learn. They are Greek words, and you can begin to memorize them. And we're going to, next week, look at some Bible passages that have them in it. I'm going to print out the Greek for you, and you'll have these, you'll be able to identify these words in that sentence. You won't be able to identify them all, but you'll be able to identify these particular words. So let's just go again. Does anybody have any questions on the alphabet? Any questions about sounds? You want me to go over them again? Or anything before we begin forming? Okay, want to go over them again?
Keith, could you just go one by one slowly?
Okay.
For us old folks.
Okay. All right. Alpha is the same sound as the lower form of our A, if you think, or the short form. You know, we have A sound, and then we have sound for the letter A. Well, alpha is the short form. It's the sound, like in father, or you know, anywhere papa, that's the alpha sound. And it looks just like our A. Just remember, it's not the uppercase, or not uppercase, it's not the long form of A. Which letter would make the long form of A sound? Does anyone know? Yeah, eta. Eta would make the long form of the A sound. So if you think about, this is the short form of our English A. This is the long form of our English A. Okay? Now, beta, beta is the same as the English B. So that's what we can do. I'll write out the English equivalent off to the side. Maybe that will help. Do you need a seat here? Or are you good? Good? Okay.
Do you have any more of these?
Yes, I do. Is there anyone who was not here who needs a copy? I'm sorry, I should have asked. Yes, hey, good morning.
I forgot my cheat sheet.
There you go.
Thank
Oh, I gave you two. Jake, could you pass these around for me? Thank you, sir. For anybody who needs one, Jake will bring it around. So alpha is the English, or alpha, if you make the equivalent in English, it's A. Beta, the equivalent in English is B. Gamma is the equivalent in English of G, gamma. And like I said last week, there is no C because C is a useless letter. Please get with me on this concept that C is a useless letter. I've been arguing this for the last decade. I do not think C serves a purpose. And those people with C's in their names always go, but I have a C in my name. It doesn't matter. It's a useless letter. All right, thank you, sir. Thank you, Jay. Appreciate it. Huh?
So if you had a C, you might not.
If I had a C, I wouldn't tell. Yeah, I wouldn't say that. But your name is Michael, right? See, why? The K could have, there you go.
But isn't it she, Marshall?
Yeah. All right. Gamma, like I said, the way I remember it is if you do a cursive G and remove the loop, it looks like the Greek gamma. And that's how every time I see that, that's how my mind registers and thinks about that letter. So the English equivalent is G. Delta, the English, oh by the way, I kept it all in minuscule this week. We did all lowercase. On your sheet you have uppercase and lowercase, but it's easier if we start with the lowercase and then later you begin to identify the uppercase. I did both the first day just to give you a visual, but most of what you read is going to be the lowercase letters. Most of what you look at in the Greek New Testament. Now if you went and looked at an ancient Greek Testament, you would see it all uppercase, no space, no punctuation marks, but that is very difficult to read. That takes a lot of training. Your modern Greek text a printed Greek text, you will see mostly will be lowercase letters. So we're going to focus on these. Delta is the English D, looks like the English D. Epsilon, English E, and it's the sound, like in get, So it's the English E. Zeta is equivalent to the English Z. Eta, as I said a moment ago, is the long A. Eta. So if I said the word arche, which means the beginning, like in John 1:1, in arche, in the beginning, arche would have this letter at the end because that's the sound that's being made. Okay? All right? What is this one? Theta. So what is the equivalent in English? We don't have a singular letter equivalent for the sound the. So we would say the equivalent would be the combination of T and H in English, or th sound. Anthropos. Like that's the word we learned last week. Anthropos. Yes, ma'am.
What is there for D there in English?
That's E. I'm sorry. I can write Greek but not English apparently. I'm sorry. It's the letter D. Alright. So the equivalent, and the equivalent for the iota is...
Double E.
Hmm?
Is that the double E?
Well, it depends. The iota can have a long or a short sound. It can be I, like iota, or it can be E, like a double E. So it depends on, really, it's somewhat subjective because we don't have anybody today that speaks actual ancient Greek. We have guys who reconstruct the language, but we don't have anyone who actually speaks it, so it's difficult to sometimes know for sure whether it should be the I or the E sound. Modern Greek almost uses it exclusively as the long E sound, the double E, like you were saying. But like in machine, that's where iota would be, or the I would be long E. That's just the best way to do it is, for now, whenever we see the iota in a sentence, use it as the short. If it doesn't sound correctly, try it with the other and see how it sounds. You'll also notice that if the ipsilon, or the iota, not epsilon, iota, if the iota happens at the beginning of a word, like in the word Jesus, that it's not Isus, but it's Ye. There's a Y sound. So it can be short I, long I, E, or it can be Ye, if it's at the beginning. Okay? Now, don't let it confuse you too bad. That one is fairly easy to recognize, because rarely do you make this sound with the Y if it's not at the very beginning and it's capitalized. So it'll be a capital I at the beginning of the sentence. We'll let you know it's Ye. Jesus, Jerusalem, things like that. Alright, so that's the English I. Remember, don't dot your I's, don't cross your T's in Greek. Alright, kappa, the English equivalent is, okay, as I said, 14 of these are almost exactly the same. Lambda is the English L. It almost follows the order of our alphabet as well. And J, K, L, M, N, O, P, these almost follow that exact same order. Mu is the letter M. I'm sorry? The letter Nu is the letter N. Kasi is the letter X, which can be confusing because we have one that looks just like a letter X. But if you think of the word axe, like an axe that you chop wood with, the sound, kasi, sound that's in the word axe, that's what sound this letter makes. And it can be confusing because when you're reading at first, you're going to see it, and your mind is going to see a capital E a lot of times, or a calligraphical E, and you'll oftentimes miss that. So just keep in your mind, that's C, not an E. Omicron, Omicron is the letter O. The English equivalent is O. One of my pet peeves, and it's one of those pet peeves that you actually, do you have anything that's a pet peeve that you actually do yourself? That you frustrate yourself sometimes because you'll hear yourself say something or do something and you'll be like, I hate it when others do that, I shouldn't do that. Okay, I guess I'm the only one who's not perfect. Okay, one of the things that frustrates me when I hear someone say logos, or if they say logos. We know what logos, you know the word I'm talking about in Greek, is the word for the word, and when it says in the beginning was the word, we know that's the Greek word. But in Greek, it's lambda, omicron, gamma, omicron, sigma. Right? So it's two omicrons. It's not omega omicron. So it's either logos, which is the short form of the O, or modern Greek allows the omicron to be OO, the long form of the O. So in modern Greek, they would say logos. But no one would say logos. You see, because the two letters, it's either going to be logos or logos. But if you say logos, it's not correct. Huh? And so, what's that?
It would be an A. You said logos.
Yeah, well, it could be. Yeah, yes. But you see what I'm saying? You hear people say all the time, it's the logos. No, it's the logos. Logos. Do you have a question, Miss? I'm sorry. All right. The P is the same as RP. Okay. The problem is their row looks like RP, and that can be somewhat confusing. But the P looks like our, most of us remember this from math, so that's an easy one to remember. But again, when you see the rho, you're going to think pa when you should be thinking ra, and that will be confusing. So what letter is this one in English? Ra would be the R. Sigma, the English would be S. Now, some people mention this as well. I thought I mentioned this last week, but somebody asked me about it. Sigma has two forms. Well, all of them have two forms because all of them have capital and minuscule, or you know, you have the uppercase and lowercase. But sigma has then another form. If it's in the midst of a word, if it's in the midst of a word or at the beginning, it's going to be the closed sigma. It's going to be a loop with a top. Looks like an O with a hat on. But if it is at the end of a sentence, it's going to be a loop with a tail, which looks like the way we do S, just upside down. But it still looks, when you're reading, a lot like an S, so it's easy to identify that one. The problem is the identification of this one. Sometimes people confuse it because it looks sort of like I said, an O with a hat on. And we have to think, okay, that's the sigma, and that's the S sound. So just keep in mind, the sigma will have two forms. It'll either be in the beginning or midst of a word, or at the ending. All right, the next letter is tau, and the English equivalent is T. Easy enough. The next letter is upsilon. Remember, you slip and go upsilon. Okay. All right, and the English equivalent is U. All right. All right. We're getting now to another combo letter. We have phi, which would be the equivalent of the English F or PH, because in English we adapted the idea of this, and any time we see an English word that has the PH, generally it's a Greek root because it's coming from this letter, the phi letter. But yes, in English PH is F, so we'll just make it simplified and say this makes an F sound. Th. Alright? Key. Remember we said last week it's key. There's a bit of a H sound after the cut key, but it's not a pronounced, it's not a divide, it's just key, like that. A lot of times I see people make the equivalent in English as the CH, and in fact, I don't have your notes in front of me. Is that what it does? Yeah, it makes it. It shows it as CHI, but then it tells you what's the sound it's making. Bach. So again, it's another form of a K sound. As I said last week, he would make with a he sound after the K. This is the first letter in the name Christos, which is the word Christ. Okay? You'll see the key, and then it'll go on to spell the word Christ, or Christos.
So when you see Xmas at Christmas, you shouldn't necessarily be offended.
Actually, I've never studied where the history of the term Xmas comes from. I've heard people say, well, that's marking out Jesus. I don't imagine that's absolutely correct. I think that this could have something to do with that. But I don't know the history of it enough to be able to speak with any authority.
You could defend it with saying that.
You say that's what it means to me. It's not as if it's an exegetical question of severe hermeneutical importance. You just say, yeah, I'm thinking of the first letter in the name of Christos. Yeah, if you wanted to do Xmas.
What it means to me is I did 150 Christmas cards and my arm was tired.
There you go. All right. The next to the last letter is the C sound. C. It's the combination of two letters in English, which would be P and S. If you think about lips, that sound. What do we say? How do we remember this one? This is the most fun. I love fun things. How do we remember this one?
The trident.
Yeah, it's like a trident. If you imagine it popping something, the sound that would come out would be psst. Okay, so that's the trident popping something. All right, the last one is omega. What sound are we getting from the omega? The long O sound, right? It looks like a W though, and there will be times where that will confuse you because it looks equivalent to our W. All right, does that help the letters make more sense now to put the English equivalent beside them and sort of say them for you? All right, so now,
There is no W in the Greek.
there wouldn't be a wah-wah. No wah-wah. And I'm not trying to sound childish, but because if I make a sound like that, what I'm just saying is there are certain sounds that it's easier to just express it by saying the sound. Okay. There's no wah-wah.
So Omicron and Omega.
Omicron is the short O,
Short O.
and omega would be the long O sound. Yep. Which helps, if you think about it, because our language can be very confusing. The long O and the short O can be in the same sentence. One O can make two sounds in the same sentence. You know, monotheism. You got ono, no, o. But it's spelled M-O-N-O. You got to think that somebody who's coming from another land learning our language would want to call it monotheism or monotheism. Right? So it's a problem throughout any language. But in the Greek it's simplified, like I said, the short A, long A. The short O, the long O. Sounds of combination. Th, ps, k. Those letters make a combination sound. Alright? Now, I want to look at a couple of different things that I think will help you to memorize some stuff. Talk about some stuff that can be somewhat confusing, but it's important to remember. We talked about diphthongs last week, right? We talked about what two letters together, two vowels together would form. And do you remember what the vowels were? What are the vowels? Anybody remember?
It's right here.
Yeah. Alpha, epsilon, eta, iota, omicron, upsilon, omega. Where we have 5 vowels, and sometimes Y is a vowel, they have 7 vowels. Okay? Those vowels can go together to make a diphthong, or a 2-letter sound. Now there are also times when 2 consonants will make a different sound. The most important one that I think that it's good for you to learn is what we call the nasal gamma. The nasal gamma. I'm going to teach you your next Greek word. You learned last week the word anthropos. What is the word anthropos? It's what?
Man.
It's the word for man. Well, this week you're going to learn a new Greek word, and it is the word. Well, let's see if you can. Let's see if you can do this. Without me saying what it is, who wants to give that one a shot? Huh?
Agegelos.
Okay, say it again.
Agegelos.
Agegelos. This is not a. Remember the short O, long O. So it would be
Loss.
loss, right? Okay. This is confusing. Everybody's seeing 2 gammas, right? You're seeing them back to back, and you're wondering how you would do the 2 gammas, right? You would, if there's 2 gammas, a gamma back to back, the first one would become what's called a nasal gamma. You would say n instead of g. And this would become angelos, which is the word angel. Yeah, it just blew your mind. I'm sorry. No, it's angelos. Because the 2 gammas together forces the first one to make a nasal sound. Angelos. All right?
Keith,
Yes?
is it just the two gammas together, or is it two, could it be any other letters together?
There are times when the nasal gamma comes into play with other letters. This is just the best example I could give. There'll be some times in the future where I'll say this is a nasal gamma, and we'll identify it when it comes time. Yes, there are other times. But for now, let's just look at it. I just wanted to mention this. This is one of the most confusing words when I first read it, because I did what you did. I said, I got lost. I got, you know.
Why wouldn't it have
I got lost.
been?
Yeah, I did Popeye. It didn't make sense. So I had to look up, why am I getting angel? Or why are they telling me to pronounce it angelos when it's agagalos?
Why didn't they spell it with the mu?
It's the way that the language works. This is a form of where two consonants together make a specific sound.
Why did they put two consonants together? Why
Well,
did they go ahead
let me
and-
just give you an equivalent answer in English. We want to use the sound the for like theology. Why did we have th make a th sound instead of just making a letter that went th?
Because we want to be different.
Because that's sometimes is going to be the answer. You have two consonants that make a specific sound. This is a time where similar. There's two consonants in Greek that are making one specific sound. No, ang, good, ang. It's hard to say it, but the nug sound is coming from the two together. All right. Sometimes it is best if you think about how you form letters. There's three different ways in which we form letters. There are what we call labials, dentals, and velars. All right? Labials we do with our lips. Dentals we do with our teeth. And velars we do with our palate or our nose, our nasal. So, well actually no, I'm sorry, velars we do with our palate, and then we have the nasal. Think about the word mu and nu. Mu, nu. It's actually the sound is, there's a n, it's coming from your nose. But do this with me. Say the word pa, ba, and fa without your lips moving. Say pa without using your lips. You can't. Now say n without using your lips. N. You can't. You can do that one because that's not a labial. That's not a lip sound. That's a nasal sound. N, n, n. But you can't go pa, pa, pa without your lips. I don't know how ventriloquists do it. They're amazing because they can go pa without their lips moving. They can make that sound. Dentals, you use your teeth. Ta, ta, da, da, and th, th. You're putting your tongue against your tooth. Say th. You're using your tongue against the back of your front teeth. Th, th, th. Alright? So, the reason why I'm mentioning this because that's how phonetics work. We think about how sounds come out of our mouth. We think about how the letters work together. Anga, los. And that can be somewhat helpful. Sometimes we will see a labial to a dental and it makes a stop in the word, or a dental to a velar, it'll make a strange transition. Anthropas. And we have to kind of condition ourselves how to say it. And sometimes, you'll see me reading through Greek, I'll get to a particularly long word or a word that I've never seen, which comes quite often because there's a lot of Greek words that I haven't seen. I'll look at a word and I'll have to sound it out 2 or 3 times. Part of what I'm doing is I'm trying to develop a phonetic understanding of how this word is supposed to sound so that my lips and mouth and everything moves properly so that I can say it. In arche, an, halagos, these, you do that. It takes time sometimes to realize, like when you're learning a new English word, you look at it, you have to sound it out. How are these sounds working together to make this word work? All right? We're getting low on time, and as I said,
Can you go over this word again, the labials, the dentals?
There's the labials are lips. The dentals are teeth. Velars are using the palate or the roof
How
of
did
the
you
mouth.
pronounce that? Fellers?
V-E-L-A-R-S. Velars. And then you have what we would call the nasals. Mu, nu is a nasal. And that's why we call it the nasal gamma. Remember I said earlier? Because you're adding a nasal sound to a gamma, and what the gamma would be a palate. So you're adding the ng sound. Ang. Okay? So you're adding a sound. Alright, vocabulary. Let's have some fun. Because it's already having too much fun. We gotta add to some real fun. How many of you have this from last week? If you were not here, I made enough copies, hopefully. Okay. But this is fun. This is serious fun here. You have yours from last week? Anyone else? You guys have very good. Okay. It's on the back.
I do.
You don't have yours. She's got hers. Okay. Okie dokie. Alright. Pop quiz. Your first pop quiz. You know the alphabet now. You are all masters of the Greek alphabet. Alright. We're going to go through these quickly because I want to actually get to some real Greek words. But if you look at the side that looks like this side, it doesn't have the... it's the opposite of the one that wants you to write it out. I don't want you to write it out today. That's for you to take home. On the other side, I want you to look at these. These are all English words written in Greek. Each one of these is an English word written in Greek. I just want you to think about letter sounds, and I want you to tell me what word we're looking at. What's number one? Boat. Why? Because it's omega. It's the long O sound, right? So it's you have there the beta, omega, tau. Makes boat. All right. Number two. Sat. Sigma, alpha, tau. Okay. Number three. Moat. Mu, omega, tau. That's right. All right. Number four. Gnat. Gnat. Like I got bit by a gnat. Because it's nu, alpha, tau. Alright, now is a fun one. What's number five?
Lips.
Lips. That's right. Lambda, iota, psi. So it's lips. Number six. Fan. You have phi, alpha, nu. Number seven. Huh? It is. Who said through? Through. Yes, it is through. It's theta, rho, upsilon. So it'll be through. And the last one. It is pay. Yes, it is. It's p eta. So it would just be pay. All right. Now, I don't want to do this in here. Well, I guess we can. We can do a couple of these. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but just real quick. If I was going to write cat in Greek, well, no, because that'd be Leonos. What would be? How would we write the English word cat in?
Alpha, tau.
Go ahead. Be K-A-T, but in the Greek letters it would be what's the Greek for K? Kappa. Okay, so it'd be kappa, and then alpha, and then tau. So that would be cat. I know we're going back to like the most elementary, but this is the same way you learn to write English, so it's fine. We're being very elementary here. All right, now, ball. What's my first letter of ball? Beta. Alpha. Lambda. Would I need to put another lambda? No. Not necessarily. It's ball. It would be that. Okay? Alright? Number three, go. Go ahead. Gamma, omega. That's right. Because it's a long O. Very good, Courtney. Long O. All right. Dip. Dip.
Delta.
Delta.
Iota.
Iota. P. That's the ugliest P ever. Try that again. You got to do 2 lines and a little squiggly hat. Okay. All right. Low. In the grave he lay. Jesus. What is it? Low. Lambda. Omega. And that's it. Lambda omega, because it's low. It's not long A. Long O, rather. All right. Zap. Zeta. Alpha. B, right? B zap. Tap. Tau. Alpha. P. Min.
Mu,
All right.
epsilon, mu.
And finally, tax. Tau. Alpha.
C.
C. That's right. So it would be this letter. It's written like this. Very good. Yep. Because that makes the X sound. So tax. Cheat. She is cheating. That's okay. You've still been here before. All right. Now, on the other side is some fun work. I don't call it homework because that sounds negative. This is fun work. You go home. You write out the letters. You have the word there. Write out the letters. On the bottom, it's going to ask you the same thing we just did. It's going to say, what English words do these Greek letters spell? Write out the English words. Number 3, it'll say, how would you spell these words with Greek letters? We'll probably just run through those real quick next week. Make sure you did your homework, and if you do, you get a gold star. Let me give you a couple more Greek words to think about, too, if you want to write some of these down. We've already got 2 words in our ever-expanding vocabulary of the Greek language. What was our word from last week? It was anthropos, which is the word for man, right? We did anthropos. So it was alpha, nu, theta, rho, omega, anthro, p omicron sigma. So anthropos, right? That was the word we did last week. This week we did right? Wait a minute. Am I spelling this correctly? No, I'm not. Sorry. Excuse me. Anga los. That is the word for, that is the Greek word, angel. Right? Easy enough. Alright. Here's a couple more for your, for you to add to your memory. How would you say that?
Ego.
It would be ego. Yeah. Like the waffle. My absolute favorite Greek phrase is lego my ego. I myself say to myself. This is what that means is lego my. I speak to or say to myself. And then I, this is equivalent to I. In English, if you said I, like when Jesus said, he said, before Abraham was, I am. The phrase was ego, eimi. I is ego. Eimi is am, or exist, to exist. I, before Abraham was, I existed, or I am, I exist. Now, ego, if you think of the English equivalent, it's easy to remember, because if you think about somebody with a large ego, they're always concerned with me, or I. So, just a little way of sort of putting that in your mind. Ego is I. Alright? Another one that should be part of every theologian's vocabulary in Greek, which is
Theos.
theos. This is the root of words, the English words like theology or theologian. And theos is the word for God. You will see different forms of endings. And this is definitely something for week 116. But no, just kidding. Well, this is going to be a few weeks from now. But you're going to see it. Sometimes it will be theon, or it'll have different endings. The root will remain fairly consistent. And this is how we're going to learn to do word studies using the roots. Because you have roots, stems, and endings. But you have the same thing in English. You have construct, you have constructing, you have construction. These are all the same root with different endings, and each one determines whether it's a noun, adjective, verb, or how it's being used in the sentence, right? So it's the same in English. The endings will determine if it's, well, it might not determine whether it's a noun or a verb, but it will determine how the noun or verb is interacting with the other words in that sentence. Okay? So, theos. One more word and we'll be done. This is another key word in Greek. You will see it on almost every page of the Greek New Testament. It is the word kai. Kai. This is the word and. And arche and halagos, in the beginning was the word. Kai halagos and proston theon. And the word was with God. What did the second sentence start with? Kai. Kai halagos ein proston theon. Kai. And the word was with God. Right? By the time we're done, I'm hoping I want you guys to be able to memorize that in Greek. Memorize that one verse, John 1:1. And because it has a lot of good, it has articles, it has connecting words like this, so it'll be very helpful. Alright? So we'll add to our vocabulary next week. This is 5 words. You've gone from 1 to 5. I tell you, that's exponential growth. You're doing great. Let's pray. Father God, thank you for allowing us a time to do some study this morning and to learn about how your word was written in the original language in which it was written. We pray, oh God, that you'll just continue to encourage us to want to be a part in this class, take part, to learn, so that we might grow closer to you by drawing nearer to understanding your word and its foundations. We love you, we praise you, we thank you. In Jesus' name, amen.